Imagine being completely innocent and yet becoming a fugitive. For years, you have been on the run from the king of your nation, not because you've done anything wrong, but because he was envious of you. So jealous, he wanted you dead. That was King David's life for 13 years as he fled from the murderous King Saul. But it gets worse. After eventually escaping Saul's pursuit by moving into the land of Israel's enemies, the Philistines, David finally experiences some peace. It looks like things have settled down, and he's now the leader of a ragtag group of outcasts. But this peace was short-lived, because one day, while he and his men were away from their base camp in Ziklag, an ancient nomadic tribe known as the Amalekites raided it. And when David and his men came to the city, they found it burned to the ground. And worse still, they discovered the Amalekites took their wives and their children captive. David was distraught, as you could imagine. His men were distraught. I can barely fathom what they were feeling. Picture the scene. And the Bible says these strong warriors, these tough men, it says that they wept until they had no more strength to weep. And that brings us to today's verse, 1 Samuel chapter 30, verse 6. It says, "And David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, because all the people were bitter in soul, each for his sons and daughters. But David strengthened himself in the Lord his God." That's what we're zooming in on today. David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. The King James Version says that David encouraged himself in the Lord, stirred himself up in the Lord. And that's how he got through this situation. He encouraged himself in the Lord, and the Lord strengthened him. And that's our takeaway today. Whatever we're going through, we need to understand that we can encourage ourselves in the Lord, and the Lord will strengthen us and get us through. And from there, David springs into action. We'll talk about how this crisis ends in a moment. But let me ask you, how are you responding to your troubles? You and I will probably never have to flee from a bloodthirsty dictator. We'll probably never have to deal with a tribe of fierce raiders taking everything that we own. But we will, many times throughout our lives, and probably even right now, need to deal with adversity. We will deal with circumstances that are unfavorable to us, things that are working against us and taking us in the opposite direction we want to go. Have you ever tried to just get up and start going forward, and then all of a sudden it feels like you were sideswiped and you're now going in a different direction and you don't even know how to get back on track? Maybe you're there right now. And that's why I love this verse, because it gives us a blueprint for what to do when life knocks the wind out of us. It gives us a blueprint for what to do when we don't know what else to do. David encouraged himself in the Lord. Sometimes when we go through hard times, people might encourage us, and that's great, but we can't depend on that. And much of the time, we're going to need to learn how to encourage ourselves. And not only through positive thinking, but encouraging ourselves in the Lord. You see, we have a God who's almighty, all powerful, all knowing, all caring, all loving. And we need to remind ourselves of that in this time, knowing that we have a very present help in time of trouble. We need to remind ourselves that because of him, no weapon formed against us will be able to prosper. And I just want to stop right now and prophesy that over you. No matter what you're going through right now, I declare no weapon formed against you shall be able to prosper. Our God will move heaven and earth on our behalf and will even give his angels charge over us to keep us in all our ways. This could have been the end of King David's story, but David encouraged himself in the Lord. And when he did, God moved on his behalf. David consults with God, and then he goes after the Amalekites. And he not only ended up recovering everything the enemy stole from him and his men, the Bible says he also captured all their flocks and herds. And so let me encourage you, whenever you go through trouble, strengthen and encourage yourself in the Lord. He will give you the strength to go through it. And because we know Romans 8:28 is still in the Bible, we know that he'll bring you out on the other side better than you were before.